and welcome to the EV Cafe Takeaway, that podcast focused on the zero-emission future that we all hope for. Every week, as you know, and do you know what? You need to put in the comments, do we want a new introduction? Because I'm fed up with it, and I'm sure maybe some of you are. John's certainly fed up with it. John, I'm joined by one of the members of the team, and it's John. Hello, John.
Hello, my friend. I thought you were going to say, do we want a new presenter to join me on the podcast? I was like, okay, I'll get my coat then, shall I?
No, you're right. But we are joined by the wonderful ex-fleet director. We're going to get into the ex in a minute. Or retired. We'll find out what he prefers. Tim Bailey, everybody, from, Northgate, but Redde, Zigup, Auxilis, all kinds of different names, but I think latterly Zigup.
Correct. Absolutely spot on. And ex or retired or whatever. I've never been one to worry about labels.
So Tim, what do you tell people now when they say, because I know you've just got back from holiday, a well-deserved one after your time served in the industry, but what do you tell people that you do? Do you say that I'm retired now, or I used to, or how does it work?
I haven't really had that much of an opportunity yet, 'cause as you say, we only got back from holiday on Sunday. Went the day after the FN50 dinner, which was a very nice surprise, and was playing golf yesterday and in the garden on Monday. So it's been pretty full on so far, and it's not been really that restful and not as advertised. But
we'll get into some of those announcements in a minute. But I know John wants to dive in.
Yeah, I want to know how you two met. So, Tim, tell me about how you met Paul Kirby and what your first impression of him was.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to think back. It's probably at a BVRLA function way back when, or it was at Fleet Mobility Live, or
do you know what, Tim? I think it was
some
the
event.
LCV committee for BVRLA, I think.
Yeah, probably.
When I was at LeasePlan. Yeah.
So through the CB committee of the BVRLA, but you know we've cropped up many times at vehicle launches and at test drives like Millbrook and all sorts, or a company car in action, and wherever there are electric vehicles around, one of us will be there, or if not both.
Yeah,
Paul is one of those people you just can't body swerve around, isn't he? You see him in the distance and think, right, there's Kirby, I'll keep out of the way. And you just bump into him inadvertently with his selfie stick.
No, I do, but I do remember coming back from the CB show. We were in the centre of Birmingham, and bumping almost literally bumping into Paul on his electric scooter.
Yes, I get everywhere, sadly.
If you operate a fleet of cars or vans, you'll know electric is the future. Transitioning to EVs can be daunting, but with Europcar, it's effortless. Our long-term EV rentals eliminate the upfront costs, contract commitments, and uncertainty. Instead, you'll get total flexibility, a wide choice of cars and vans, and Europcar's expert support. So, make the switch without the stress and experience Europcar. Search Europcar Business.
Tim, you've had a long and wonderful career, and it does look like the vast majority of it has been within the fleet sector. I do have a question around how long you think you spent at St Andrew's College, Dublin, but anyway, we'll come on to that in a bit. How did you end up falling into fleet? Because all of us fall into it. Nobody chooses it. Surely not.
Well, look, I can still remember interviewing. So I grew up in Ireland, lived in Dublin, moved to London in the late 80s, and I applied for a job at Guy Salmon Car Rentals in Marble Arch, just behind Oxford Street or Bryanston Street. And I remember the interview with the branch manager there, and he was saying to me, "This is an odd industry. You'll be either in and out within 2 years, or you'll be in it for life." And he was absolutely spot on. a number of the people I met in those first years, I'm still friends with today, still in touch with a lot of them today. And it's absolutely true. He did say no careers advice counselor is ever going to suggest a career in vehicle rental or necessarily in the fleet industry. And it's one you fall into. But I've always kind of worked on the basis you've got to enjoy what you do. And I love doing it. And I love being involved in it. So I was in operations initially, working in a branch as a customer service agent, and then supervisor, branch manager, area manager, and so on up through the ranks. And then I moved into fleet management, and this would have been in the kind of mid-90s, I guess, early mid-90s. I guess I was I worked for so many different brands, as you kind of touched on at the beginning, because Guy Salmon Car Rentals was bought then by Alamo Rent-A-Car. Alamo then bought National Car Rental in the US and Eurodollar in Europe, and then launched the National Car Rental brand in the UK, and that's where I first worked together with Neil McCrossan. And so then I went over to, bizarrely got moved into the finance department because I was good with numbers, but I knew the Alamo rental system well, and they were using it in Europe. So I went out to Europe to run the financial planning team for continental Europe, based in Frankfurt. Moved the family with me, and initially it was for like 2 years, but ended up being there for 5 years because we had 9/11 in the middle of that. And all the fleet funding in Europe was off the back of US paper, which had become worthless by then, of course, because Alamo, Light, Budget, and a number of others went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. So funding was worthless. So we kept the business going for about a year as it was. And I was coming up with the plans to keep the banks at bay and coming up with plans that would work, that they would believe in. And we got through, and we survived for a year at that point. And then we realized we had to take the business through administration. And we did a kind of a pre-pack. And that was kind of mid-September, launched the new business 1st of January on a new system. And during that time, renegotiated all the airport contracts, all the manufacturer agreements, all the major supplier agreements, all the employee contracts. And at that point, I thought, right, I'm going to hand it over to someone and come back. But they said, no, will the plan work? This was John Lee said to me, so will this plan work? And I said, yes. And he said, great. So you run it for now and make it happen. I said, well, what I did say in my plan was that it needs to be run by a German, because it's been run by Americans and Swiss and Austrian. It's never been run by a German at all. So that's what's necessary. So, okay, we'll find one. But until then, you do it. And that was 3 years. So I was running the business in Germany for three years, and then came back in as fleet director to the UK after that. And I guess that's 2005. So that was really when I was properly, fully ingrained in fleet. But I'd been fleet director for that business, which then got bought by Europcar before I left in 2009 to join what was then Helpire, which became Redde. I mean, honestly, there are about 20 different brands above the door, but I've only in reality worked for 2 companies. That's the thing. In that time, it's only really been 2 companies. I've been kind of Alamo, Guy Salmon, National, Four Wheels, whoever, all of those brands, Europcar for 21 years. And then 16, 17 years at a combination of Redde and Northgate in the latter years. So,
wow. Tim, tell me, what is it about fleet, though? Because you're clearly a very highly skilled professional who can do everything from ground floor right up to boardroom. You could have gone anywhere. You could at any point have said, you know what, this vehicle nonsense and changing brands and owners and all that stuff is a pain in the backside. I'm going to go and work in something different. But you didn't. You stuck at fleet. Why? What is it about fleet?
I guess in part it's what you know, but it's also who you work with as well, and you've got to get some job satisfaction out of it. And I certainly did. I really enjoyed all the time what I'm doing. Then one time I didn't enjoy it. I realized because when I was a branch manager or when I was running a team of any sort, I always said, you've got to enjoy what you do. It's really, really important. And I preached this to my two daughters throughout their lives. You do enjoy what you do. You've got to do that. And I do remember after the Europcar acquisition, there came a point where I was thinking about that comment to myself while I was shaving one morning, looking myself in the mirror and saying, when was the last time you enjoyed yourself? And I thought back and I thought back and I thought back and I thought back and I thought, oh, geez, it's been 6 months. I've gone back 6 months already. And the last time I thought I was really having fun. So I went in and quit that day. And spoke to the MD and who relatively recently taken over from John Lee, who just retired. And we had different views of how things were going, so we weren't really seeing eye to eye. So it didn't help either of us a lot. So it made sense for me to move on. So that was on the Tuesday, and I got a call on Thursday to say, I'm at Helpline now. I need some help here. I'm sorting out the fleet and the branches and everything else. So it kind of all worked really well. Timings were immaculate.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess, Tim, because let's touch on something that happened. You mentioned the Fleet News event. And so for those that don't know, Tim was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Fleet News Hall of Fame, which is quite an auspicious thing, isn't it? It really is it's quite a thing. But it sort of reflects on that you've really enjoyed your time and you've really added value. Because one of the things that you and I have done together is like speaking to some of the manufacturers. We've had a couple of times where we've turned up in the same place and oh, hello Tim, hello Paul, and we're talking to manufacturers, we're helping them kind of shape their product to come to the UK. You've really left your mark on this industry, and it's great that Fleet News have acknowledged that, because it is one of the sort of pinnacle brands and magazines and awards dinners. It's up there with BVRLA, SMMT and so on. I mean, how did that moment feel? I guess that's the really important question, isn't it? How did that moment feel? And yeah,
well, I mean, I guess I'll go back to March. I mean, I've been massively humbled by this. To join the likes of John Lee and Freddie Alderson there, and Neil McCrossan's in there, but others, more recently, like Gordon Stephen, who's an absolutely brilliant guy. And has led a fantastic team at Ogilvy Fleet, for example. But also motor legends like Maurice Howkins, Kevin Griffin, and Vince Kinner. And there are many more, Tim Buchan from Zenith, and these are truly, truly great people from the industry who've given it lots. And to be in a list with them is just, it is very humbling. And I guess it kicked off actually last March at the BVRLA dinner when I got awarded the Freddie Alders Outstanding Contribution Award, and I was just completely gobsmacked and surprised by it. And somebody there knew, because they were sitting next to me, making sure that I didn't disappear off to the loo when the awards were. And I was just about to go to the bar actually to get another beer. And he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Just wait a minute, we got this more. Just wait. That's everything else." This is Rick Baird from Marshall Leasing. It's another lovely chat from the industry. And Rick said, "Look, just sit still." And then Toby Poston read this out, and I think my chin hit the table. It was just, I was recognizing, because he was talking about chair of the CV committee and this, that, and the other, and I was very gobsmacked. And then, so I thought, that's it. That's brilliant. I can round off my career with that. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm really, really touched and honored to have that. So then I got invited to the FN50, and it was 3 days after I'd retired. So I thought, well, will I go? And Neil McCross said to me, "No, you really need to go. I think it's worthwhile. It's a good way to send off before you shoot off on holiday." So, okay, all right. So I went along. And then when Steve Breyer started reading out the commendation for myself and Dave Brennan, what a great guy as well to be up there on the stage with him, absolutely fantastic. And it just couldn't stop grinning from ear to ear. I mean, it's just, I'm hugely, hugely proud, but as I say, very, very humbled by it all.
And that's the thing that comes through from you, Tim, is that humility. But clearly others see a great deal in you. What is it that you are proudest of having achieved in that career?
I think I look at it in two parts. One is taking a company through administration, at the other side, launching it. And we were profitable in the 5th month of operation. Doing that in another country, in another language, with lots of support from the UK at the time and quite a bit from the US as well. But I think that's one of the things that kind of stand out. It opened the door for me, proved that I could do things. It demonstrated to others that they could trust me to get stuff done. So it was quite a big turning point and stepping stone in my career. But I'm also proud of, we look at when Paul and I were on the CV committee, we were talking about what things were coming up, and there was this thing called a sales mandate for electric vehicles on the horizon and what that would mean. And, I was really, really pointing out to everyone that, and saying, we've got to do something for people to understand there is a fundamental difference between ICE cars and vans and electric cars and vans. And whereas ICE cars and electric cars have been developing for years and years and years, vans are only starting to operate. I think at that time there were only 3 electric vans on the market. And the plug-in vehicle grant was going to run out of money if they weren't clear that actually the politicians and civil servants needed to understand there's a big difference. Cars are taken by people who own them and drive them and for aesthetic purposes and so on. Whether they be company cars or not, they choose them, they're driving them. A van is just a tool. And it must be fit for purpose. It's got to be able to do what it needs to do. And I think that getting the plug-in van grant created and having £430 million worth of grant segregated for electric vans was one thing. Having it then extended when by another 140 million last year, when the government didn't have any money. They still don't, but that's another question. But getting another 140 million out of them, getting them the recognition that they needed to remove the barriers and blockers for the 4.25 ton vans, and getting that through to the politicians. I mean, kind of the week before I retired, we were in, and I was in 2 different meetings in Westminster with the BVRLA, meeting with OZEV and DFT, etc., and then also meeting with a number of politicians at a round table. But getting these things across them, they've got to understand that it's not just about new, it's also about used, and getting the consumers to understand that SMEs, sole traders, whatever, to be using those older vans, to give them a choice for electric. You've got to give them a reason, and at the moment there isn't, because they're not better, they're not cheaper, they can't travel as far, and they can't carry as much. So there are a number of hurdles to overcome, and you've got to face into them if you're really going to hit those ZEV mandate targets, because within the next couple of years, they're going to become completely and ridiculously unachievable if something doesn't happen. And here I'm waffling on about this, but you've got me on a run because I do feel passionately about getting this across to people. And I do feel proud of the things that we brought to the table and that we drove and changed government policy on.
Yeah, and Tim, you're absolutely right. I think without voices like yours and that of the BVRLA, we've played a tiny part in the plan for vans, and we've needed the people like you, because I did some rudimentary maths, and I often quote the numbers that you guys talk about in terms of the value of a vehicle per day. So that I think your research sort of summarised it somewhere between £500 and £1,500 a day, a vehicle is worth to a business. So if you take the very bottom end of that, and look at the value of the van sector to the British economy every day, based on downtime and all of those other bits and pieces, it's worth £1.6 billion a day to the economy. And that's, taking into account 20% of the vehicles are off-road of the 5 million, and then, the older ones are worth half of the newer ones. So it's well thought through stats and right at the low end, but 1.6 billion. And I don't think government, I was talking about with another big fleet director today. I don't think government, and it's proven to me by the lack of a segment. When the little drop-down boxes, what segment do you work in? There's no automotive, or there's no transport.
Never.
And it's like, true. I mean, come on! This is one of the most important sectors to our industry and to the UK economy. Wake up and smell the coffee. But Tim, you talked about this latter bit, and I'm desperately concerned that we're losing a voice in losing you to retirement, and you're going to take retirement seriously. You're not off down to consult and do this, that, and the other. I'm sure we'll get you back occasionally, but we're losing your voice. And what first of all gave you that impetus to get weighed in and get involved and be positive and challenge government and drag them to the party? And two, what are we going to do without your voice? How are we going to carry this forward?
I mean, I think I'm over time, I got more and more self-belief and self-confidence, and through listening, through working with smart, intelligent people, through taking on board and accepting that every day is a school day, and learning new things all the time, and being okay with a fresh approach, and being not afraid to make mistakes, and recognize early when they're a mistake. Learning all of those things, and I think it allowed me to speak up. And this may surprise you, but inherently I'm quite shy, and I've had to work my way through that over the years, and almost like playing a role. And I've got through that where it's become more natural for me to feel comfortable speaking up and saying what I believe in. And when I believe strongly in something, I'm going to make sure everybody knows I believe in that. And I've got to the point where I'm no longer shy in retiring, in coming forward and sharing my piece. And if I disagree with someone, I'll disagree with them, and I don't care who they are. If I'm talking with a lot of experience behind me, and with a degree of financial understanding as well, and understand the implications of this, that, or the other, understand them quite quickly and the ramifications of that. So I became over time more confident, and these things just, it's part of the job, so it becomes more. I just got more and more passionate about it, I guess, and particularly when I could see how far behind the van commercial vehicle sector was in terms of EVs and the looming decarbonisation, which is essential. And God, I think the number of times I've been asked, so you're in the motor industry, electric cars, are they really going to happen? And I'm just dumbfounded. Yes, they're already happening, and it's coming, and it's legislated for, and it's going to happen. And you recognize early on that electric vans are going to be a big challenge, and so a different approach is needed for them somehow. And if you really want it to happen, then you've got to throw support at it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Let's unpick that, Tim, because that's really, really important. As you exit the industry, there are lots of people. We went to the installer show this year, Paul and I, and we spent a lot of time talking to guys who install everything from central heating and plumbing right through to solar panels in domestic and industrial scenarios. And they all, to a person, said, it's a van, which is a tool. The words you used, it's not a vanity project. It's not something that I can afford to invest huge amounts of money in if it's not just going to get me from where I am to where I need to be. What more do we need to do to convince the man in the street who's a painter, a decorator, to be brave, to back electric vehicles because they are cleaner, more efficient, better to drive. They do the job in a way which you don't understand unless you get your bum in a seat and use it.
I mean, for one, you've got to get rid of all the naysayers and block out all these myths that come out. I mean, it just does my head in when people tell me, well, we're going to have to rebuild all the car parks because the cars are heavier. And, and I said, okay, it's like that feathers and coal joke, isn't it? So which is heavier, a 2-ton ID3 or a 2-ton Golf? Which one of those two is heavier?
Oh, the ID3, definitely.
Yeah. And the potholes are caused by electric vehicles. Oh, that's right, because we never had any potholes before, did we? And you think, crikey, O'Reilly. So one thing is you've got to get rid of there's got to be a myth-busting advertising campaign. I did suggest some time ago that if you do ever get fines out of manufacturers for not achieving the ZEV mandate, you should give them credits for however much they spend on advertising using the Mythbusters. And you should do that. I mean, one of the things I said to the guys at DFT, it's not in their remit, but why don't you let electric vans drive in bus lanes? Bus lanes are often empty. They can be used by taxis and motorbikes. Why not electric vans? That would give somebody who's operating in a city centre a real incentive to take one. But at the moment, they don't. And so there's an awful lot of advertising that's needed. There's a lot of marketing needed of one, myth busting, but two, the capabilities. There's some action that government need to take to they've got to incentivize. If it's gonna work, they've got to incentivize for the use of them. And other than that, it's test days. I know Northgate have been really at the forefront of explaining to customers, alongside Charged EV, which is the charging infrastructure business that we acquired shortly after COVID. Knowing that decarbonisation was developing us significantly towards electrification, and working with van operators, sticking telematics devices in them to demonstrate which of the vans actually, you look back over the last year, there's not one journey that van could not have made, whichever brand you choose. Maybe you've got one that continually goes from Land's End to John O'Groats, okay, but you could change 80% to electric. So take the distance and range question out of your head altogether. So let's park that, get rid of that altogether. So there's a lot of consulting and so I've done a lot of EV van days at sites across the UK where we've had manufacturers bring in their products. We've had customers come in and test drive them, check them out. We've done some elongated test drives of with the support of the manufacturers as well, to just get, as you said, to just get bums on seats, to try them out. I mean, typically, and I go back right to the beginning of my career, the reason that we got the vehicles at a price that we did was because they were seen as advertising, and the manufacturers used to refer to them as this is marketing spend that you're showing up as discount, but it's marketing because you're putting a customer in a product for a few days to test it out, particularly in the insurance sector. So that's going back to the auxiliary side, because you're when you've had an accident, you get a replacement vehicle, and so you typically got it for 2 or 3 weeks. So it's a great way to really test drive a new vehicle. So you want your product there to get it. Doing that for vans is more complicated, often because of the racking and various additions that you've got to the vehicle. So one thing that Northgate was very good at was loads. I mean, more than 40% of the vehicles on their fleet has got some sort of adaptation to it, so they can, we can mix and match and adapt and add and remove things as necessary. But it's getting the customers bums on seats to try them out. And that brings me to another point. One of the challenges you face with cars, it's usually user choose, or the person who's driving it will have a considerable amount of input into the vehicle they're taking. Vans is completely the opposite. Nobody who buys the van is going to drive it. And the people who are driving the vans rarely get the opportunity to have any input into what kind of vehicle they get. So it is a purely financial and functional decision to take a van. So there's just so much there's just so much that's needed, both from government. I mean, we all play a part in, when I hear these stories, and you slap people down straight away. So that's just absolutely not true. Those things you say are not true, and you're part of the problem.
Yes.
And you've got to challenge them at that time. And sometimes it's difficult because you're in a crowd of people and everyone's laughing about it, saying, yeah, you make an interesting point. However, it's completely false.
Tim, do you know what? That's exactly where I've got to with people, because they'll go, oh, and I go, that's absolute nonsense. Unfortunately, let me tell you the truth, because it is just mind-numbing. So with that in mind, Tim, you've got a fleet. I'm a fleet manager. I don't run any electric vans. I've got 100 vehicles. What piece of advice have you got for me now in your retired role? So you don't have a particular axe to grind. What are you going to tell me that I need to do that will help me make the right decisions about the future? Go.
Be open-minded and listen to experts who know what they're talking about. That's your starter for 10. That's the lift doors have just opened. That's the start of the elevator pitch. The reality is you've got to give it a try. You can't say definitively, no, that won't work, because you just don't know. Because it does work. Because you can make it work. In a lot of cases, you can make these commercial vehicles work. It's not easy. We're transitioning to something that's very fundamentally different. I do remember seeing somebody was showing a picture of Fifth Avenue or Park Avenue in 1901. And there was one vehicle with somebody waving a red flag walking along in front of it, and everything else was horse-drawn carriages, right? 10 years later, this from the same building, the same shop, all cars, all motorized vehicles on this road up and down, not a horse to be seen anywhere, right? In 10 years. And so people think, well, this is a similar change it's going to be. He said, no. It's a completely different change. This is so fundamentally different. All you're talking about is a different powertrain, right? Everyone's got used to driving vehicles, so that's not changing. And they're used to the ease of going into a filling station and filling up in 2 minutes and having 800 miles of range or whatever, and going and doing what they need to do. This is a fundamental change, and it's it's about our grandchildren and our great grandchildren having a planet to live on. As my children continue to remind me, and we can't wait another 50, 100 years for this to happen. It's got to happen now. So we've got to be open-minded to it. So as a fleet manager, Paul, starting out in your fleet career, be open-minded and listen to experts and give everything a try before you start being a naysayer.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, and the lives of your family at stake, and mine and many others, you've decided, selfishly, to retire. You unspeakable wretch. Man, we got some work to do here.
Man, that's mean.
Why did you decide? I mean, you are a very passionate, capable, driven human being. What's more important to you than saving the planet?
It's funny you put it that way, because one of my best friends sent me a card on retirement that just had one word on the front. Well, it had two words. I won't tell you what the first one was, but the second word was quitter.
Oh, that's
and
brilliant.
inside you lazy work shy son of a and this coming from someone who was already retired themselves.
But in all seriousness, Tim, you're 62 years old. You're a young man. What are you going to be doing in your retirement?
Playing more golf. Traveling. In the nicer weather, I'll be out on my Harley, playing more golf. Nice. And day trips with my wife, visiting more of the UK. I need to be able to spend more of my time over in Dublin, where my mother still lives, who's now 91, and still living on her own. So there'll be more time having to be spent over there. And, you know, I mean, I was talking about this. So we got the holiday, then back, and then I'm over to Ireland for a while. Then back in, it's December, kind of Christmas, then January going skiing in January with some friends. And then the Six Nations starts, and, you know, and that kind of takes it through to the end of March. Kind of, and then the weather turns and I'll be out in the Harley. So, you know, there's lots of things to keep me busy. And I, you know, I have said to people, look, don't be afraid to contact me. I've kept my number, and I've given lots of people my personal email address. Because I do feel strongly, and it is a concern that, you know, I recognise that there's been, you know, I've had quite a lot of input. I mean, I have to say, you know, my replacement at Zig Up is brilliant. I've known him for 20 years. I had recommended him for the role. Matt Slater's come through manufacturing with Ford, and was at West Wallasey before joining Zig Up. And of course, Neil McCrossan, another legend of the industry who's been around longer than me, with very similar kind of, started off as a customer service agent in Scotland for what was then Swan National. So there's lots and lots of experience. Neil's on the board at the BVRLA. Pat Riley has taken over as the main contact, and Pat, anybody who's met him is just a lovely, lovely guy. Very, very good. Lots of experience in the industry, and will take up lots of contact with the BVRLA on the operational side of things. And on the CV side, we've got John Taylor, who's the managing director of Blakedale, replacing me on the CV committee. Then John was at Northgate for over 20 years. There's nothing he doesn't know about vans. And runs the Blakedale business now, as I say, which is the traffic management business. So there's lots of kind of, I've handed off to a number of different people to pick up the pieces, all of whom have been around a long time and know everything there is to know about commercial vehicle rental.
I'm fascinated just to touch on something very quickly. You mentioned that you hail from Ireland, Dublin, and yet there's almost no detection of an accent at all. When you go home and you see your mum and you see friends and family, does your accent come back, or is that gone now?
It does. It does. I remember when the girls were quite young and we went over, we were in a taxi coming from the airport, and so they sat in the back with Louise, my wife, and I sat in the passenger seat and chatted to the taxi driver. One of my daughters said to me, "Daddy, what's happened to your voice? It's gone all funny." And and then the more of the Irish accent starts to come out, you can then really hear it, and this is what it sounds like normally. But listen, I grew up in South Dublin, which has a very soft accent anyway, to English parents, and because I was there from when I was a baby. So the whole way through school and everything was at Dublin, and Dublin's a fantastic city. It's an absolutely fantastic city, and the social life there is second to none, as my liver can attest. And it's where I did all my early years of training, yeah. But the funny thing is, it now sounds more West Country, and the number of people who think I come from like Bristol or somewhere like that. So when I was working in Bath for Redde, everyone thought, "Oh, that you because you're a local boy." No. No, I grew up in Dublin. I was a motorcycle courier in Dublin as my very first job. Well, actually, no, I was a fuel injection technician, I like to tell people. So a petrol pump attendant.
Very good.
Tim, it's, we'd be forgiven for thinking that you've been blessed with a really straightforward life. It sounds pretty cool, if I'm being honest. You've grown up in Dublin, as you say, a fantastic city. You've worked hard. I guess actually back in the late 80s, we might have worked within 4 or 5 miles of each other, believe it or not. I was just a little bit further up the Edgware Road by Paddington Green Police Station, if you know Paddington Green Police Station, by the flyover. So I was just there, not far away. And life as you've been to Germany, you've managed big companies, couple of daughters, married, life is, Harley, the future looks beautiful. Has there been any really tough times? And what did you learn? Because we love sort of dipping into that for people, because it's easy to see the surface. We talk a lot about mental health. We talk a lot about the challenges of life. And I think just an understanding of what it takes to live at the highest level of our industry and fleet sector, and how you tackle those difficult times that, maybe would catch you off guard or be really difficult.
I mean, it started off at very early days. When I was 8, my father was killed in a car crash. And that was a little bit challenging. I was probably too young to fully appreciate it at the time. My elder sister was 11 and my younger sister was 6. So my recollections of my dad are more through photographs and stories. So I sadly can't remember what he sounded like. My elder sister can, and we've talked about it. That was pretty challenging. But I look at the strength of my mum at the time. So she's got no family over there. Her husband has been killed. She's in her mid-30s in a foreign country for her. But we were settled in school, so she kept us there, and she was going very much stiff upper lip and get through it, and was thinking about us. And I kind of do the same for our, two beautiful girls, daughters, who are Laura and Hannah, who I'm incredibly proud of, and who are making their own way in their own individual careers and doing exceptionally well. And apply the same for them. I do, got to the point where I think, well, I'm doing them, slugging my guts out to give them a better chance later on down the line. And that's been a big focus, and obviously Louise, my wife, supporting the family as a whole. And, we took the decision quite early on for her to stay at home and give up her career. Funnily enough, we worked together. That's how we met. At Guy Salmon. She worked at the head office in Woking. Well, back in those days, that was the most common way to meet your future partner, was working with them. And of course, with hybrid working and working from home, all of that's gone, and it makes it really, really difficult. So I guess those were the things. When tough times happen, you deal with what you can deal with, and you don't worry too much about what you can't control. You prepare for the worst, and you prepare for the best, and hopefully you land somewhere in the middle. But you've absolutely got to keep a positive outlook on things. And we've had the guys, Luke from Andy's Man Club, in to talk to the business, because, as you say, mental health is I mean, after COVID and everything else, it became more recognized, but it's really difficult. And we as men find it really difficult to open up and talk. And so I've always been open with my kids and with my wife, and share as much as I can. Sometimes they get bored with it, don't want to listen, but but likewise, I felt it important that we always had a very open. We're a very close family, because when we were in Germany, obviously, we kind of knew each other, and there were other families from the school that they went to that we got to know. But you could become very close, and so we've remained very, very close. But I've always tried to make sure, no matter how difficult the conversation could be about anything at all, that I don't show that, and listen, and don't make them feel uncomfortable, because I'd always want them to talk to me about whatever it is. So that kind of comes back to having an open mind, being positive, and there will be a tomorrow. The sun will come up tomorrow. Whatever happens, there will be a tomorrow, and you just got to keep going.
Tim, I'm so glad I asked that question. I feel I've learned so much about you as a man that makes me even more disappointed that you're not going to be around in our industry anymore. But anyway, but I'm also grateful that we do have your number, and that I think there will be times where we will call on you and just kind of go, Tim, what would you do in this scenario? How would you? Because I mean, we've still got the 4.25 ton stuff, just kind of kicked into the long grass time after time after time. It's still out there, not being dealt with. I think there's wisdom in the man that we've got to meet today, and I'm sure actually there's a lot of people that will wonder why was Tim Bailey up at being this person in the FN 50 Hall of Fame, the other award from the BVRLA, and I think they'll understand now. I think they will, and it's been a real pleasure. But we do have a special treat for you.
Oh, okay.
There's a closing tradition. There's a closing tradition with the EV Cafe, so it's not quite. Don't get too excited.
It's not an award.
No, it's not an award. Although it can be. It is. It's an award. What were we thinking? I've got. You're the inaugural member of the EV Cafe Hall of Fame. But in the absence of anything else, what we do have for you, as every good podcast that has a closing tradition should do, is give their guests an opportunity to wave the EV Cafe magic wand. There it is. So this is the EV Cafe magic wand, all with its little lightning bolt there. And it's coming to you, Tim. It's coming over the airwaves right now through the internet, and there it goes. Oh, he's resisting.
He's the first highly intelligent human being who's not taking it.
No, he's got it. Oh my goodness. He's waving it flagrantly.
So smooth.
So Tim, now you can use this wish however you desire. I'm kind of hopeful that you might look back generously on our industry and give us a wish for our industry. But please do think about, I'm going to give you an extra one. There you go. I'm going to give you an extra wish for your own retirement and for what you're going to do in the future. But a wish back to our industry and a wish for your future.
Difficult one. I'm not going to wish for anything for myself because I think large degree you make your own luck, and what will be will be. I just hope I get to spend lots of time with my wife and kids and friends, and on the golf course. That's a hope rather than a wish, because what will be will be. As a wish for the industry, is that the government and civil servants and politicians finally get their act together and listen to the experts who are giving them advice without an axe to grind, just wanting to deliver their plans. Not our plans, their plans. And we're going to tell you the easiest way to get that done. And I think there's a lot of people who are doing that, and I just wish, my wish is that that is heard, is landed, and gets delivered on.
Brilliant. There it goes. It's gone. It's out there, and it's going to happen. Because Tim, I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. It really is almost the same advice that you gave to the fleet manager in me that was ignorant to what the world holds. Be open and listen to the experts. And I think that's the message back to government, isn't it? And that's the wish that we've all got, is that they'll be open and that they'll listen to the experts, the people that they spend their time coming into a room with and listening to you and to many other members of the BVRLA team and to others of us that have played that part, in knocking on their door and standing in front of them and doorstepping them a little bit, just to say, guys, listen. One of the things that was most frustrating recently was just that kind of, so there was two things. There was, first of all, we were all sort of crying out for money to support and and then they go and give more money on new cars again. And it was a real head scratch moment, And then the other thing, when it was first announced, was a complete removal of the exemption for London. So this was just London. For vans and cars, zero emission vans and cars would now pay the full charge. And of course, we also got tax on the vehicles at the same time. And that has the ability to completely reverse everything. But what was interesting in all of that was that Sadiq Khan had made that decision and that announcement. Neither Lillian Greenwood, who was Minister for Roads at the time, and Robert Bruce, who is Senior Director within the DFT, neither of them knew that had happened on the day that I spoke to them. And I was gobsmacked that how can you not know? This is like major news.
When you think about it, the congestion charge was to improve air quality.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a congestion charge to prevent congestion. And so you're now disincentivizing electric vehicles with no emissions going into London. That's genius. And it shows it up for what it is. It's just a money grab. It absolutely is just a money grab. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous and contradictory to exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
I know. And there's been so many money grabs, and we could go on and bitch. But like you say, listen, we're going to make our own luck. It's not in our own gift entirely, but we can definitely speed this whole process along with the positivity.
We've talked a lot about the BVRLA and stuff, and then Toby Poston is a wonderful person to have taken over the mantle from Jerry as chief exec to drive this forward, and there's lots of credibility amongst the civil servants and politicians and so on, and supported really, really well by the likes of Tom and Catherine and all the rest of the team at the BVRI. They're wonderful, wonderful people, but they are really getting the message out there and doing everything. And it's just like you see it constantly. I think he and Lakshmi and various others were at Downing Street, and I think they will continue to have a very important voice. And clearly I wish them well as well. But I think that with those folks pushing it, if they can't do it, no one will.
Indeed, and we can be optimistic. That they will achieve it. I mean, Tim, I mean, personally, I could carry on chatting for the next 3 hours. I'd like to add Guinness to the mix, or a gin and tonic or two. And maybe we'll get the chance to do that. I sincerely hope so. Somehow, some way, some industry event that you decide to go on then, why not? But John, this has been a lovely chat, hasn't it? But so insightful, so many nuggets of gold.
Do you know what? It's been a bit like meeting Gandalf of transport. Do you know?
You shall not pass.
Yeah. You've got that. You're so much knowledge. You're so economical with what you say, but it has huge impact. And you are a really rare human being, Tim. I've never met you before, but instantly warm to you. You have a great sense of humour. You're good fun. You know your stuff, but you don't come across as pompous, arrogant, overbearing. You deliver beautifully. And do you know what? It's a real privilege to have met you. I wish you absolutely everything that you possibly hope for your retirement. And I just want to thank you for all you have done for the industry, much of which I didn't know you had done. But my lordy, it stands as a real stake in the ground from Tim Bailey that you've made our industry a great deal better, and you've made it great for us to work in. So thank you.
That's very, very kind of you. And again, I'm very I really appreciate that. But thank you.
No, thank you.
That's all you need to say, Tim, actually, because it's very easy to kind of play down what we do. And I've had the privilege of knowing you for quite some time. And what I think John has summarized it beautifully. Not everybody would be willing to take the call of this guy that's gone out and done his own thing. And you've taken my call many times. You've you've heard my pitch on this particular vehicle or whatever, and you've gone, yeah, do you know what? Let's hear that and let's have a chat. Whenever we've met at the industry events, you've always afforded me time, and honestly, that for me, full of imposter syndrome, is always something that is very humbling, and I feel very flattered to have the ability to have had the conversations that we've had and to enjoy some of the journey together. And what you've done in Northgate and Redde Northgate, taking it from a very difficult time, the time that you joined, not many people know about, and we won't go into the detail of, but it was a very difficult time. And you brought it, through that and seamlessly made that business continue on the right trajectory. And it's not always been easy. So I feel very privileged, and I feel very privileged that we've been able to lay this down for other people to listen to, so that they can get to know the Tim Bailey that we know just a little bit, and that's been really exciting. So thank you for taking time in this little window that you have between holidays, golf, Harley Davidsons, and Dublin, to spend a bit of time with us. But Tim, it's been a privilege, genuinely.
No, thank you. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed judge up, but I do have a voice and I do like to use it. So I'm quite happy to chat.
I've seen Gandalf in a mood, so I know that once you lose your rag, I'm sure it's not pretty.
Firm but fair, I'm sure. Firm but fair.
Indeed.
It's almost enough to make me want to take up golf, The prospect of a Guinness Zero, a few rounds of golf with you guys, what a great day out that would be.
You can do do it somewhere like Portugal, where you can do it in shorts and a t-shirt, even better.
See, that was very subtle, Tim. Well done. I like that. This is the kind of invitation that I would welcome.
Keep your Guinness Zero. Take me to Lisbon.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it Porto Banús in Portugal? Is it that's the place? Isn't it?
That's closer to. That's like Marbella in Spain. No, it's Quinta del Lago and Valdelobo and that sort of area. There are some wonderful courses there.
Yeah.
Right. Off to Google search.
Well, Tim Bailey, thank you again so much for everything that you've shared with us today, and for the career that you've had, and the knowledge and insight and wonderfulness that you've given to the motor industry, even though it doesn't have its own sector when you drop it down on the financial things and whatever.
Let it go.
Let it go. But so
it is a
everybody, that's been
though,
Tim.
Honestly.
It is.
Yeah.
We don't have a sector. Oh gosh. But I was going to say connect with Tim Bailey on LinkedIn, but probably not really. You could follow the companies that he's worked with in the past, but I don't think you'll get too much insight from his golf handicap coming down, or the latest tour on the Harley. But in the meantime, everybody, check out a lot of the other podcasts. We've got over 130 sitting there today that you can work your way through for all of the insights that the likes of Tim and others are sharing with us to help you on your journey, both within the fleet sector, but also just in life. It's been a real privilege to talk with Tim today, and the many others that you can hear from. And also, if you are not sure about what your next vehicle looks like and you want to check out the best value electric vehicles, you can go to leasing.com. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Check those guys out. You can go through the EV Cafe page, follow the EV Cafe, follow you two. Tim's having a laugh now. You can also hire a vehicle from Northgate and test that out as well if you want to. Just to make Tim happy. But thanks ever so much, everybody, and have a great day.